Oh, hey! If you're a regular listener, I bet you heard the second bit in your head. If this is a first-time listen, weird choice. Good choice. I'm glad you're here, but interesting selection. Last episode, I used this time to talk about you being you and shining like the crazy diamonds you are. And this time, I wanted to talk about granting yourself whatever brings you joy. Obviously, as long as that's not at the expense of others. So maybe you're like me, and you like By God 20's cover of Like a Prayer. Sing it, and sing it proudly. Oh, you don't know that one? Haley, can you give him a taste?
Life is a mystery. Everyone must stand alone. I hear you call my name, and it feels when you call my name, it's like a little prayer. I'm down on my knees. I wanna take you there in the midnight hour. I can feel your power, just like a prayer. You know I take you there. I hear your voice. It's like an angel sighing.
Yeah, that's the stuff. Maybe for you, it's eating some garbage candy like grape heads. Oh man, I love grape heads. Are we best friends now? Because maybe it's reading about director Sam Furstenberg directing American Ninja. You too? Or maybe it's watching movies with dialogue like this.
Nothing happens down there without your knowledge. Whose drugs are they? Ma's? Whose?
I don't know.
Lau's? His pal Coolio?
If I knew, I will tell you.
All I'm saying is if you have a moment to make it a joyful one, either for yourself or a friend or a loved one, you won't regret it. I know I don't. Now, if you excuse me, this spicy Korean ramen and bag of Tartantines aren't gonna eat themselves. While I do that, how about you listen to this? The movie is China Strike Force, the guest is Josh Griffith, and this is VHS Presents New Releases and Late Returns. Hello and welcome to VHS Presents New Releases and Late Returns. I'm your host Dirk Marshall, and I encourage you to find us on Twitter and Instagram at VHUS_podcast. My guest for this episode is Josh Griffith of Solid 6 Podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
How's Solid 6 going?
It's going great. We had a big hiatus there for a bunch of different reasons. And then we had a few episodes that we were able to record intermittently, but I feel like we're back in a groove.
Awesome.
We just finished our first basically complete series without any interruptions. Episode should drop tomorrow. We're covering Winter Kills from 1979. And so I think the show is going really good right now.
Well, I'm glad you're back. I was really worried during the break. I need that content, that sweet, sweet content.
Yeah.
No, but a lot of people that listen to Solid 6, I always enjoy the thoughtful messages that people leave you, because people can call in and leave you voicemails, which is awesome. And now you have a burger phone, which is also an exciting addition. But yeah, I know I enjoy listening and pretending like I'm hanging out with you three, and I know that your other listeners do too. So it's a good camaraderie, which sometimes is hard to find in podcasting. It's like, I'll like two of the three people, or it's like there's one person where I'm like, oh, you're just so on all the time. It's hard to enjoy.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the burger phone, because we were talking about how to decide close calls with decision making. And Allison realized that she had a cheeseburger telephone that we could plug into the board to use for those tough decisions.
Yes, I love it. It's great. I don't know how you do it, but it's a wonderful thing that you've introduced. And where can people find all things Solid 6?
Well, we have a website, solid6.net. We're on Instagram a lot, solid6.podcast. And really just anywhere that you would find a podcast. We're on all kinds of streaming services. So Apple, Spotify, all kinds of stuff.
Awesome. Great. And I look forward to this Winter Kills episode. And that brings us to new releases. These are things currently bringing us joy from the realms of entertainment. And we start with books. Is there anything you're currently reading?
Yeah, I haven't been reading very much recently, but I went to the bookstore. I don't know if you're familiar. There's a little comic book shop that's opposite Dots and Clinton Street Theater and all that stuff. I went in there and found just a bunch of things that I was really interested in. Specifically, I don't know if you're familiar with the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen by Alan Moore, which got turned into a bunch of books and also one unfortunate movie.
Oh man.
I'm catching up on the most recent, or I think it's the most recent one that he released called The Tempest, which is kind of just another episode in the adventures of these like timeless immortal heroes from literature sort of trying to scratch out an existence in the modern world. So are you familiar with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen or that any of that stuff?
Just the Sean Connery vehicle, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Well, unfortunately, you got the worst of it.
Yeah.
First two volumes of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is all, basically superheroes from the 1800s, I think are fantastic. They're really untouchable. And then every so often, Alan Moore will come back and sort of re-update the group with new enemies and new threats and new people come in and people leave. But it's all kinds of classic literature characters that you wouldn't necessarily consider as superheroes in that context unless it's kind of forced. So that's kind of what Alan Moore does with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And I strongly recommend the entire series, particularly if you start with volumes 1 and 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is Sean Connery not in them, or is he a major?
Sean Connery plays Alan Quatermain, who is an early colonial explorer. I mean, like he definitely has the books, the old serials from back in the day. Like he's a real character. But Sean Connery is not sort of like the star of the show.
Gotcha.
According to Alan Moore, that would be Mina Murray, who's the vampire girl, if you're familiar with the movie. I'm really asking you to remember this movie, Dirk.
I just remember watching it and Sean Connery leaping from a moving car and sticking the landing at his age, and I was like, maybe this one's not for me.
Core strength. You gotta just keep working the core.
Just got it. I also remember like a large submarine and or car. I don't remember which one it was, but yeah, that's my everyone welcome to the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen episode of our podcast. Great. Well, I've just been reading a book called Nightmare USA by Stephen Thrower. It's the untold exploits of exploitation independence. And I think this could easily be seen as the definitive work on independent low budget filmmaking from like 70 to 85, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good. And I have his Fulci book, and I've just barely dipped my toe in that. And they're just huge, massive. I love these books that come out. They're like bigger than your lap. Like you feel like you really are cracking into something. They're serious. I love it. And because they're like essays and things, you can kind of move at a snail's pace and just like read a little bit, come back to it and not feel like you lost something. I picked it up. Don't regret it at all. That's Nightmare USA by Stephen Thrower.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah, please.
So, Dirk, I would regard you as one of the people that I know that I would say is almost like encyclopedic when it comes to knowledge of movies. And when you read a book like that, is it just like reviewing the hits, like memories? Is there legitimately new information that you hadn't considered or heard before?
Well, first of all, that's very kind of you to say. Secondly, it's not greatest hits. A lot of the books that I get about film that I really appreciate, and Stephen Thrower being one of the main people that I'm reading right now that I really adore, it's the way they form thoughts. I'm not what I would consider a very intelligent person, and so I read things that are really well articulated things about film. It really impresses me because I'm more of like a meandering, babbling type of person, and so that's what I really read them for. It's like organizing the chaos in my brain. And there is stuff that I haven't read, or I haven't seen or thought about, or I saw and didn't think about. That's the other thing, is I watched a lot in my youth and didn't really digest it. It was just on. So it's good to sort of focus me back on certain things like that as well. Yeah, that's what I use it for. And so that I have more facts that nobody cares about, that I can try to work into conversations with people. Which brings us to music. Anything you've been listening to?
Yeah, sure. So like a lot of stuff, I feel like I'm all over the place. I'm flailing, so to speak. First person I'll bring up is a singer-songwriter by the name of Sierra Farrell. And she's beginning pretty popular these days. She started out just like a few years ago, and she has a voice like a songbird. She's very much like classic country Americana, circle skirts, big hats, stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
But I have noticed that because her rise of stardom has accelerated so quickly, I've noticed that she's become a lot more, I guess what I'd say, pop culture in terms of her particularly stage performances. You know, if you go see like Beyonce or like Madonna back in the day, or like Pink or Gwen Stefani, it's like they put on this big stage show and they're wearing these very sexy showgirl kind of outfits. Mm-hmm. And Sierra Farrell is kind of doing that. And it's raising my eyebrow because it feels like it's opposite of the music that she's singing, which is all about, you know, like rivers and horses and stuff like that. So I've been listening to a lot of Sierra Farrell. I do recommend her.
Okay.
She's got all of her albums are wonderful. On a similar related tip, I've been getting familiar with another singer-songwriter, same genre, sort of like alternative country, Americana type stuff, by the name of Luke Bell. Unfortunately, Luke Bell died last year, which is actually kind of what fired up my interest in checking out his stuff. He'd always been kind of like a name in the background. And his story is kind of interesting in that he was just a regular working dude who he didn't have much of a career. He didn't grow up in like a musical family or necessarily with ideas that he was going to become a singer-songwriter. But once he got encouraged by some of his friends, he tried it and he did really well. I mean, I think he's great. So Luke Bell is another country western Americana type singer-songwriter. I would check him out. He's got some really fun music videos and he's just a really likable guy. And I'll conclude with the other direction, which is this. And Dirk, you're going to have to correct me here because it's like industrial music, but it's also like dance music. It reminds me of like late 80s Ministry, maybe early Nine Inch Nails. The artist's name is Promised Land, and he's only got a couple different things out there. You don't know him?
No.
Okay. So
I'm so excited.
Again, he doesn't have a lot of work out there, but he has a couple songs that are just bangers. The one I'm thinking of in particular is called Take Down the House. And again, the artist's name is Promised Land.
Yeah.
And it's just been on repeat. Like whenever I'm at the gym or whenever I'm like driving around, it's like I'm just whenever I need to get like pumped up. That's my shit right now.
That's awesome. Well, the first two that you mentioned totally makes sense in my mind because I imagine you smelting or something in your garage with surrounded by old motorcycle parts and that sort of alt country type of vibe. I'm like, this works. This really works. And then the other one is like once the motorcycle's put together and then you're tearing through town in the night. That's what you'd listen to Promised Land. I think that's the vibe I'm getting.
That's exactly it. You nailed it. That's just an average day in my life. Smelt some parts, tear down the road on the motorcycle.
Yeah. Okay, great. I just have a couple. Bass Bin Twins is the first one. That's Bass Bin, one word, Twins. It's one dude, and back in the 90s, my friend Aaron got into DJing. He got the Technics 1200s, he had the mixer, he went and actually DJ'd parties, here in the States and I think in London, and he introduced me to Bass Bin Twins. It's one guy, basically it's like breakbeat music with tons of hip-hop samples. Like, it's basically sample-based, and it's just really good. It's super solid, and on YouTube you can find his mix from 95. It's like 55 minutes, and it's just sheer like hip hop cut up joy. I really love it. It reminds me of my friend Aaron and I back in the 90s, just like having the best time with these songs that sample Eric B. and Rakim and stuff like that. And then 12 Rounds is the next one. They did an album called My Big Hero. The episode that comes out right before this one is about a goth movie, and we fantasy draft our own sort of goth road trip soundtrack, and so it took me a while to dig through some stuff, and I almost put 12 Rounds on there, but they just couldn't win because we only got 6 songs each. But it's Atticus Ross and his wife Claudia Sarn. It sounds kind of like Garbage if it was produced by Nine Inch Nails is kind of what it sounds like. It's from 1998, and they have one song called Where Fools Go that samples Nick Cave's Red Right Hand. And so the one song I want to shout out is called Bovine, and that's from the band 12 Rounds. It's I don't know, it's real cozy, that 1998 pocket, so I recommend that. And then lastly, I've been really burning through the back catalog of My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult because they're coming to town. They're playing the Crystal Ballroom, a special set from like 87 to 97 or something like that. And Adult is opening, Kinga is opening for them. I'm super excited about this show. I've been on a real tear going to goth shows again and hanging out at Coffin Club, and so I'm loving it. It's really good. So the last one is, of course, Thrill Kill Cult. Which brings us to games. Anything you're playing game-wise?
Yeah, I think like half the world right now. I finished Last of Us Part 2, and I had to go back and replay Last of Us Part 1, like the first one.
Yep.
And so I just completed that one. Maybe like 2-3 days ago, played through that again. And man, it's just a joy of a game, mostly just because the mechanics work so well. It's just a good story, and the character dynamics work so well. The story just kind of builds on that. So just tip the hat to Naughty Dog and everyone involved in that, because both of those games are fantastic. I know a lot of people were kind of bummed out by 2 because it's a very dark game for sure. But man, the first one I think is a bona fide classic. I don't think that anyone can really bag on the first one at all.
I completely agree. I think the first game is unbelievable. It like blew my mind. Literally, the storytelling, like you said, the game mechanics are great, but the storytelling itself, I would. There's a character that got killed off in the first one. Spoiler alert: somebody dies. And I went into the kitchen where my wife was, and I was like, "You won't believe what happened!" And I, for like 15 minutes, had to walk her through all this stuff that she could not care less about. And it just, I love that game. And then the second one, I was so stressed playing it. The game is so just meticulously put together, and I loved the storytelling and thoroughly enjoyed where it went. I think they're really gutsy in what they do, and I don't feel like they kowtow to other people. And so I'm excited to see what they do next.
Yeah, fully agree. I don't really follow the like video game community like conversations. Like I'm not
Mm,
on any forums. I don't really
me
follow that
neither.
many
Yeah.
accounts. So really my experience in video games is pretty cold. It's like I put it in the machine, I start it up, and that's whatever it is for me is my pretty much my only impression. I
That's
don't
great.
really have I'm not influenced by other people's conversations too much.
Hmm.
And only through our mutual friend Brady did I find out that people were kind of bummed out about number two. And I have to echo everything you said. I think the whole game was just marvelously assembled,
Hmm.
and they are pretty fearless with all the decisions that they make and the directions that they want to put into. They're not interested in fan service, and I think
No.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. There's a part in the first game where I think you come out of a hotel or something and you're on sort of a little rooftop. Down below is a courtyard with these dudes kind of milling about, and you kind of have to go right and sneak through this building, and then you kind of take them down one by one, or however you want to play it, which is another thing I
Hmm.
love about that game because I loved that set piece so much. I played it like 8 times or something because you could just start over at that one point, and I'm like, I'm gonna sneak over and get this guy, and then I'll shoot an arrow into that guy's neck, and then and it's just like so satisfying. I love that game. Unlike that game, though, is the game I'm playing. So, my wife Sarah's favorite game is Miss Pac Man, and for Christmas, I bought her one of the 1-Up arcade cabinets, and it's now mounted on the wall in our dining room. And so she loves to play it. And on there is 9 other games, one of which is called Rompers. And the letters are spelled out in pant legs. I couldn't play the game fast enough. It's from 1989 from Namco. It came out in only Japan. You're a straw hat wearing gardener whose girlfriend gets kidnapped, and then you're going around pushing over walls on top of walruses that breathe ice and spiders. And these old games are so crazy because there is a story, but there's no way you would ever know it. And
Mm-hmm.
I love it so much. Like there's a game called Pack and Pow. We didn't know how it worked, what was happening with this game, and then I read the folklore out to a group of friends that were over at the time, and we were just like, "What? That's what's happening in this game?" And like then it like opened up and became super amazing. And that's sort of how Rompers is now. I currently hold the high score in the house, just humble brag there.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I need small victories. But that's the only game, excuse me, that's the only game I'm really playing, which brings us to television. Anything you're watching episodically? And I have a guess.
So episode wise, it's not Last of Us
Ah,
because I don't actually have HBO Max or whatever.
yeah,
I've been meaning to get it. I just haven't got it yet. I keep getting whispers about the show from all kinds of sources on social media and friends and stuff, but I haven't seen it myself yet. I will get to it.
hmm,
The show that I've been watching recently, I don't watch a lot of television, but what I have been going through recently on Netflix is Conk on Earth, which is the sort of fake history comedy documentary thing hosted by an Irish comedian named Diane Morgan.
mm.
So Conk on Earth has been a lot of fun. Have you seen that one
I
yet?
just saw it pop up yesterday, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll watch this. And then I thought, I better check it out first, because sometimes comedy stuff, Sarah's like, I don't want to watch this. So,
Yeah, it's very British. It kind of reminds me of like early Daily Show where it's just kind of deadpan humor, but it's working for me. I'm enjoying it.
that's cool. Again, opposite end of the spectrum. I'm watching Last of Us. I put it off until the third episode came out because I was like, I want to watch all of them. But then people were so on fire with the third episode that I was like, I gotta check it out. And the things that I really like about the show is that they're in real environments. It's not, they didn't decide to just shoot it like those Marvel shows where it's just a big round screen and there's nothing really there. And I like
Hmm.
being in a location, so I really like that. They made some changes from the game which don't bother me. I'm not one of those people that's like, "Why isn't this just the game?" And I think they're really smart. And for Sarah to watch it and acknowledge how smart the writing is really impressive because she
Mm.
was like this detail, this detail, this detail, and I was like, "Oh, you were really paying attention to this." And so I'm loving it. I think the performances are all incredible. I can't imagine how they're going to do the second one. It's just I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited. It's an exciting time to be alive for me.
I'm also excited by that. Again, just to add on that, I fell in love with the miniseries Chernobyl that Sky Network and HBO put together. And it's the same showrunners that ended up
Hmm.
doing Last of Us. So I have just total confidence in whatever they come up with simply because I loved Chernobyl so much.
Yeah, it's always exciting when somebody pops onto your radar, where you're like, oh, I like what these people are doing, and they're just getting started, and you're like, oh, this
Hmm.
is great. I love this because it's not like they're just gonna disappear, and then you're like, oh, I thought we were doing something. Like I just discovered a band, and we saw their last show, and I'm like, but I just discovered you. Like what? So bittersweet. The other show I wanted to talk about is MPD, Multiple Personality Detective, which is a Japanese TV series based on the manga, directed by Takashi Miike. It features a detective with three personalities, and it's Miike, it's weird, it's bizarre, it's Lynchian, it's episodic, which I'd never seen sort of Miike stuff structured in. This is my first TV thing for him, but I got the box set. I love it. I don't know who it's for aside from myself, but that's a multiple personality detective. Which brings us to movies. Anything you've been watching movie wise?
I'll be honest with you, Dirk. A lot of the movies I've been watching recently kind of suck.
Oh, no.
I've been on a weak streak here, and I controversially I don't want to upset anyone, but I just watched 1990 Bronx Warriors for the first time, and I was not super impressed with it comparatively to like other Italian sci-fi.
Sure.
For me, Italian sci-fi is like a sweet spot of low budget, big fun.
Same.
Hands of Steel, for example, is
Yeah.
amazing. My girlfriend and I watched 1990 Bronx Warriors and just could not get over the weirdness of like the main guy.
Yes.
It's like someone taught a cat to walk on its back legs. Like this person is like wearing, it's a praying mantis probably
Yeah.
in a human skin suit. And how this guy landed like the lead role of this like action film, I have no idea. But he just looks so out of place and he's so weird, maybe captivating that way, but it's distracting from the story.
Sure.
So again, not to throw super shade at 1990 Bronx Warriors, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Isn't there a sequel?
I'm sure there's like 5 sequels. I don't know. I think there actually is. I think there's like Escape from the Bronx or something like that.
I think I own
Um,
both of them is the thing, but where in the studio right now, I have no idea.
I will mention, I know I've already mentioned it, but the movie that we just covered on the podcast that I had nothing to do with picking out, that was Brady's call, was Winter Kills. And that was actually pretty entertaining. So I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but basically it's like a paranoid thriller about the assassination of JFK. There you go. Escape from the
I
Bronx.
have it. I have it.
Of course you have it.
Okay.
I'm surprised it wasn't like facing out like on your shelf there.
Right. Say, I'm sorry. Carry on,
No,
please.
it's all right. Yeah, so Winter Kills, these days we accept all of the conspiracy theories about the assassination of JFK like on their face. Like, well, of course CIA had something to do with it, or maybe the mob did it, but it certainly wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. But back in the late 70s, that was all still kind of hot information. Most people kind of suspected something, but nobody really knew anything. And so for Winter Kills to basically assemble like a paranoid thriller about this guy who's ostensibly Bobby Kennedy, like going through the investigation and discovering how really JFK was killed. It's kind of a fun movie. It is really ambitious. Like there is no one who is offering any reserve to the plot or the characters. There's so many crazy casting decisions. Elizabeth Taylor has a cameo. Like it's a crazy movie if you've never seen it.
Yeah, that's great. And people can hear that episode by the
Yep,
time
that's
this
right.
comes
Yeah, it'll
out.
be coming out real soon.
So that's fantastic. I've got Chick Boxer from 1992. Um, this is one I knew nothing about. I just saw the cover and I was like, this looks interesting. And then the more I read, it's about a young woman who yearns to emulate her favorite TV superhero, Chick Boxer. So she enrolls in a karate school where the teacher is up to dirty dealings. It's shot on video, I think like negative money is how much was spent on it, and the making of feature on the Blu-ray is everyone saying how much they hate it, like everyone that's involved in it. So it really sets you up for an experience. There are people that absolutely love this movie for all its quirks and its charms and its strangeness. I would say, unless you're into the shot on video stuff, it might not be for you. It was kind of a difficult watch for myself, and I'm okay in the shot on video stuff. So it's something to see. I don't think anyone's to blame for things not working per se, maybe on a budgetary standpoint, but the cover is awesome. Chick Boxer from 1992. And then I watched Eye of the Beast. This is the same night from 2007. It's James Van Der Beek fighting a giant squid. What more could you want?
I'm into that.
Yeah, it's made for Sci-Fi Network. It's directed by Gary Yates, who made Once Upon a Christmas Miracle, our Christmas love song, Christmas by Starlight. I think we get what's going on here. Unfortunately, it's not Christmas, but there is a giant squid. It's a lot of giant beefy tentacles.
Mm-hmm.
It's
thick.
Thick, really thick. Like this squid's yoked, yoked squid. Yes, it's not bad. It's very enjoyable. It's not even like cheesy. It's a little bit of the pacing where they try to introduce drama in like these types of films is not. I mean, I get what you're going for, but we just want James Van Der Beek on the boat with a giant squid.
That's all I want.
Yeah, Eye of the Beast 2007. You could do way worse with giant squid movies, I'm assuming. And then last, Burning Paradise, directed by Ringo Lam from 1994. Shaolin monks use their deadly kung fu skills against evil minions. It's awesome. It's super bloody, super violent. There's some great horse deaths. So if you don't like fake horses being hurt, because it is a movie, then watch out. But it's really good. I love all the set pieces. I love horror kung fu mixes, and so that's what this is exactly. Just came out on Blu-ray. Beautiful transfer. So if that's your thing, Burning Paradise. Oh my God, I have one more. This was a different night, but I watched Screamers: The Hunting from 2009. That's right, it's a sequel to Screamers, the Peter Weller, Jennifer Rubin film, much later. And it is very watchable. The deaths are fantastic. Super small budget, you can tell. But I love these type of sci-fi, they just make like a metal hallway and they're like, this is the spaceship. And then, they spend a lot of time in the desert. And you're like, why are they? Oh, they don't have money for sets or anything. So they're just in the desert. Yeah. But I really enjoyed it. I wrote a whole article about it that's on our Patreon. It's a fun one. And I was shocked that I didn't know there was a Screamers 2. So there you go, everybody.
Nor did I.
Yeah. Which
just question.
Yeah.
Someone told me that it's not sci-fi unless there's a corridor. Are there any corridors in Screamers?
Yeah. The spaceship is mostly a corridor. That's what it is. And there's also caves. You're in a spaceship, but then you're also in a cave where I was like, this is okay. I can see what you're doing here. Caves are just Earth spaceships, in my opinion.
Yeah, Earth ships.
Yeah.
So I love Ringo Lam. I got familiar with his movies last year, and I look forward to checking that out. You said it was called Paradise Burning?
Burning Paradise.
Burning Paradise.
Paradise Burning, different film. Now, I have a question for you. What would Vice Squad be without Wings Hauser? Or House 3 without Brian James? Would you watch Panther Squad without Sybil Danning? No. It would be boring. That's how we feel about food and Marshall's Hot Sauce. Wake up your meals with these small batch sauces created and bottled by a chef. These aren't made in a co-packing plant. They're thoughtfully sourced, balanced creations with a focus on quality and flavor. The red chili lime, sweet and a little spicy, like Gage in Pet Sematary. Or habanero carrot curry, which is more spicy and ethereal, like Erotic Ghost Story. Marshall's Hot Sauce has something for everyone, including the mildest, which is a smoked habanero barbecue, kinda sweet, kinda smoky. It would be right at home on the range with Klaus Kinski and The Great Silence. You know what I'm saying. There's also a new line of seasonings with real ingredients dehydrated and combined into fantastic and easy ways to cook for yourself or your family. From the newer pasta and marinara packets, right on down to the explosive volcano sparkle, which I'm sure Zed and Police Academy 3, you know the part where he hangs out in the tear gas training? What a cut up. I'm sure he'd want some sparkle. You'll find it all at marshallshotsauce.com. Enter VHUS podcast at checkout for 20% off. Plus, you might get a little something from me. So head on over, wake up your meals, not to mention Sarah's now teaching classes again, so you can learn hot sauces, pickling, all kinds of stuff. I'm hosting hot sauce tastings where you can hang out for an hour and just eat spicy stuff. But you'll find it all there, marshallshotsauce.com. And now, back to the show. Which means it's time for our late return, and we're going to China Strike Force from the year 2000, directed by Stanley Tong, I think, who did Super Cop 1 and 2, Rumble in the Bronx, and I'm sure Brady's favorite movie, Mr. Magoo.
Mm-hmm.
He's not here to defend himself, so I'm just going
to... yeah, let's just go with that. Yeah.
Stars Aaron Kwok, Mark Dacascos, Ruby Lin, oh, and Coolio. As who? Coolio.
Uh-huh.
He's a hard...
It's a documentary.
He's a hard...
It's just a day in his life.
Just call me Arnold.
What's Japanese Interpol doing in China?
One of our agents was murdered in California.
By Coolio?
That's it.
Okay. We'll get you released through a lawyer. Make it look real.
He's a hard drug dealer from South Central, and I know because he tells you that in almost every scene he's in, and he happens to be named Coolio as well. It tickles me to the nth degree that they're like, you're Coolio.
You're just going to be Coolio in this thing. You're not playing a character. You don't have a backstory. I want to just believe that Coolio was just like ad-libbing all of his lines through the entire thing.
So I would just want to start by opening up the floor for you, Josh. What is your thoughts when I ask you to please come back on the podcast and then I give you something like this to watch?
I'm fine with it. Honestly, Dirk, your pedigree is pretty strong. Crocodile Fury set like a very high bar. And I was like, all right, well, if this guy came at me with Crocodile Fury, which absolutely devastated me in a good way, then whatever China Strike Force is going to be, like, even if it can't match, like, it's going to come close.
I mean, what can,
Yeah. So I was game, I'm down, whatever. Cool. And I like Stanley Tong. And I remember Rumble in the Bronx very fondly. And I want to say I've actually seen, was it like Ancient Warriors or like Jungle something, like his first movie?
Oh, yeah.
I watched that years ago and I enjoyed that. So I hadn't seen this one. I thought Coolio was an interesting choice. I thought, all right. So it's like the late 90s, early 2000s. There's this whole intersection where Hong Kong filmmaking is becoming like more Americanized.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of American interest in these films and actors and directors. So, with Chow Yun-fat and John Woo and just everybody else, Jackie Chan in particular, the crossing of the streams was really strong back then. And it seemed like the thing to do was you got to team up Jet Li with DMX.
Yes.
And you got to get Coolio in a picture with Stanley Tong.
Yeah. Oh, boy. So I didn't know this movie existed. And then I saw an image of one of the set pieces in the film. And I was like, that can't be real. And then I couldn't find the movie anywhere. So this has already moved up to like my number one priority in life. Like I was just like, no. And on YouTube, there was like a making of video I saw. And then I was like, they're doing this for real? Like it's not like a green screen or something? And so I just bought it. I had to, sight unseen. And then I watched it once and I was like, well, there's a lot here to talk about. Who could I have on? And then I rewatched it with headphones on and the movie was like 3,000 times better. The sound is so integral to these action films, and I think if you're just watching it kind of willy-nilly, you're kind of doing a disservice to the end result, no matter what you think of it. And then it clicked because the motorcycle jumping onto a bus scene, I was like, oh, Josh, I gotta talk to Josh about this.
Yeah.
So the film starts off with a fight sequence in a building that turns into... It's like a training sequence, I guess, for these cops. It's
it was all a dream.
Yeah,
no, it's a training sequence.
It's very strange. And then we next get Coolio music as Mark Dacascos is in a medical supply truck. They come across a wreck, and he shoots a woman with a baby, I'm pretty sure.
And the baby is silent after the gunshot,
yeah.
So we have to assume that he shot both mother and child. Stone cold.
It's so... What an introduction. They're like, look at this hot bad guy, and he kills babies. I was like, okay.
Baby killer.
Yeah. We're then introduced to the beautiful Ruby, and Mark meets his uncle about business. Cue Coolio's I Like Girls song, because they're at a fashion show. I mean, I don't mean to speak ill of those who've passed, but this is the laziest song I've ever probably heard.
And yet it's so catchy. I like girls over and over and over again.
He says it 3 times and then he goes, ooh, wee, I like girls.
Money in the bank. Yep. Ship it.
Oh my God.
And of course, it's like, hey, it's a Victoria's Secret style lingerie fashion show. So why not?
God. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of close-ups on women's waists. It's a waiter walks up and stabs a dude in the neck, and a chase ensues involving cars, buses, and motorcycles. What did you think of this section of the film?
So first of all, I gotta give props to the assassin. Like that guy looks like a dork. Like he looks really, really square.
Yeah.
And man, he's got some moves. Like he is running for his life. And obviously, like the very fit looking guy, Aaron Kwok, like is
Yep.
chasing after him. He looks like he's in shape. The
Yeah.
assassin does not look like he's in shape, but the assassin is keeping up. And that whole sequence I thought was really great. Ends up with, I'm assuming, a wire work jump into a river because it kind of appeared as if he was in slow-mo, but not really. So I'm assuming that's a wire.
Yeah.
And boy, that's a long drop into the river.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought that chase scene was fun. And I thought that even like the death scene, do we even find out why he killed that guy? Because I was trying to pay attention to
No, I have no
the
idea.
who's and the what's. And obviously Mark Dacascos is like the bad guy, but like who is this guy to any of those gangsters to get stabbed in the neck?
I have no
I
idea
don't know.
because Ruby then steals something off of his body that apparently was important. I've seen this 3 times and I still don't have these answers that you're searching for. She's followed by the cop. We get a great little mini fight, and then she uses his tie to get to a floor below while pulling him over the banister, which is pretty cool. Next, Coolio talks to Mark, and Coolio is racist towards Italian people. And then Coolio is racist against Mexican people. And then Mark is racist towards black people. It's all in one scene.
There's a lot of strong language
Yeah.
that is not fit for 2023,
Yeah.
but Coolio doesn't care because he's dead and
Yeah,
he's allowed to say whatever he wants.
that's true. Because in the next scene he does, he's racist towards people from China. It's just like every scene he's either telling you where he's from or he's putting other cultures in a very small box. It's really interesting. The cops arrive to seize the Lamborghini that they have full of drugs, and Mark jumps in and drives off, and Aaron gets on top of the car and then gets rammed against a truck at, I think, full speed. I was trying to see like if they cranked it or what, but it's just like
Man, yeah.
it's really hard. He hits that. And then he steals a race car, and then there's a whole race sequence on the road. And I know I sound like an old man, but I love that there's actually other cars on the road, and it feels like there's something dangerous. Now it's just, it's all a green screen and there's not even a motor in the car. But in here, like, they're really racing in between. He's driving that little race car underneath the semi truck. Like, I love it. I thought it was super fun.
Yeah, I thought that was a fun scene as well. The old Lambo Countach with the bad guy in it, and then our hero jumps into the F1 car to chase after him. I doubt that they didn't have permits because setting up like a car chase scene is like a big involved process. Lots of camera trucks, lots of periphery, lots of people working around. Stanley Tong talks about how when he's making particularly his early movies that the permitting process was just so intense that they just didn't bother, that they would just like roll out there with camera crews, shoot what they had to shoot. If people were upset, they would basically just get out of there as fast as possible before the cop showed up. Obviously with a scene like this, that's impossible. So you have to assume that everyone who's driving in traffic around them is a part of the production. So I thought it was fun. The F1 car, the Lambo stands no chance against the F1 in terms of speed.
Oh, really? That was my next
but-
question.
Well, here's the thing. If they actually got onto a freeway, the Lamborghini could get rid of the guy by simply driving more than 50 miles because the F1 car doesn't have enough gas to go any further than that. Also, F1's like as fast as they're incredibly fragile. And even though like the Lamborghini is not exactly like built like a tank, like you could just bump the F1 car and it would explode. I mean,
Okay.
like, they're extremely fragile.
Yeah, that was a poor choice on his part then.
Yeah, you really got to think tactically about like your chase cars, right? Like the whole sequence with the motorcycle, it looked like it was a street bike that turned into a trials bike, and he was able to jump it, hook it onto the top edge of the semi truck, and then drive over.
Yeah.
That was a fun scene. That was pretty cool that they did that.
Probably not possible, right? You couldn't just hook a tire and then drive up it?
Well, if you on the rewind,
Yeah.
bear with me here.
Oh, I should have asked.
They have a street bike, which looks like it's a 125 like auto shifter, which is basically the standard motorcycle all over Southeast Asia. That's a very normal motorcycle. And they do the stunt where they swap out the motorcycle that you see the guy jump onto. And for the actual stunt itself, they use what's called a trials bike or a trials motorcycle, which looks a little bit different than a normal motorcycle, but they actually do stunt it like that. Like they will climb vertically up rocks and stuff.
Whoa.
So if you have a skilled rider that knows what he's doing, he can essentially hook the front wheel onto a corner and then drive up a sheer face. So it's pretty crazy. And like the I don't know if you watch the same version, he sent me a link.
The same one, yeah.
But the in credit sequence is they go to like immediately to bloopers.
Yes.
And so they show the motorcycle stunt rider attempting the same stunt multiple times, usually falling off the side of the truck without a helmet or anything, just like eating shit like 5 times before he gets it right.
Yeah.
Props to that guy.
Wow.
That's a tough job.
That is awesome. Next, Mark and Coolio hang out at a strip club, and the cops chat about their next move. Coolio staying as true to Coolio form. In every scene, he's saying, I gotta get me one of those. And he says that about the strip club, too. The cops get all the drugs, and then Coolio and Mark sit in a hot tub together. Coolio's racist towards people from China again.
I gotta admit, though, the Chinese are some shrewd and devious-ass people. But you the best, baby! Even though you one of them.
And then Ruby enters, and Mark Dacascos sees Coolio's boner.
Yeah, boner alert.
Yo, cuz, you trying to play me? Just cause that bitch make your dick hard don't make her nothing. I know she not a cop.
Like that has to be an awkward situation for everybody, unless like you're just super body positive. It's like, hey, this is normal. That was a really strangely, uniquely awkward strip sequence where she takes her clothes off, because it doesn't really seem to serve the purpose of like them interrogating her. She's just kind of doing it to fill out like the next 90 seconds to 2 minutes of the movie. Yeah. So I don't know what that actually served.
It's really weird. And the fact that they have like Mark look down at Coolio's junk and then look up and say, you better sit down in the hot tub that we're sitting in. I was just like, this is weird. I love this weird choice.
I think you better sit down.
Oh my goodness.
Just living in the moment.
Yeah. The uncle is like, no, to them dealing drugs. So Mark kills him, but the girl gets framed in a weird scene. And then the cop makes out with her in the cell, which I was not comfortable with what was happening there. I was like, what? Is this a double cross? I don't understand. And then Mark trains with this blonde dude in a fight sequence in a little ring. And then Coolio and Mark visit a temple, and Coolio says, man, I could get used to this for the 1,000th time.
Yep, I gotta get me one of these.
It's like, okay. And then they're smuggling drugs in like 100 metal bowling balls. I didn't quite understand if this is a mechanical process or what this was.
Oh, what I took that is that there was like the mysterious drug ship, which was offshore, and they had access to a pipeline, and they were feeding the drugs through the pipeline in the little bowling balls.
Okay.
Like that was just like the mechanism of like the smuggle.
Yeah. Well, they get the 100 bowling balls of drugs, and Mark gives Coolio the ugliest car I've ever seen. What kind of car is this?
That's a Rolls Royce.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a Phaeton or a Phantom, but it's a Rolls Royce. Just like whatever, like imagine like the cartoon version of a Rolls Royce in your brain.
Yeah.
It's that one.
Yeah. But it's like the Lakers colors or something. I'm not sure.
Ugh. I don't know how they picked the color scheme, but man, that was ugly.
Yeah, it's not great. Then the cops arrive, and we get our big fight scene here in the temple. It's really fun. I love the acrobatics of the two cop dudes. Like, there's a part where he's laying on his back, and the other guy's standing on his feet, and he, like, flips him around. It's weirdly excessive all of a sudden. Like, in a Jackie Chan movie where he's doing that all through the movie, you're like, yeah, sure, that's what we're doing. But it's, like, kind of a weird Looney Tunes accent to the fight choreo for this scene that I thought was really interesting.
You bring up a good point. So, like, this movie, it's more, like, balanced as, like, an action movie where it goes, like, suspense, drama, guns, car chases. It's not necessarily living exclusively in like kung fu fight sequences. And then we get to the end, and all of a sudden, first of all, there's a major character death. Well, I want to get ahead of myself.
Yep.
But yeah, at that end sequence where the cops run into the temple or the Emperor's Palace or whatever it is, it definitely jumps up a notch where you've got like really intricate fight sequences and wire work, and everybody is like top form all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, they kill one of the main cops. I was like, I didn't expect that to happen. And then somebody gets speared. That's always fun. There's lots of shooting. Coolio starts fighting, which I didn't think was going to happen. I thought he was just going to crack some jokes and maybe shoot somebody. Yeah, and then the helicopter lifts up the ugliest car, and 3 of them are on the car, and they're fighting. It's pretty crazy to see, and I guess Mark was one of the only people that wasn't tied on. Like, everyone else had security harnesses, and he was just up there. It's like, okay.
Just being a him.
Yeah, I would believe he doesn't need it. And then the helicopter smashes Mark against the top of a building, and that's how he gets his death. It's pretty satisfying. And now we get to the part, the whole reason that this episode even exists, I think, is because I saw the plate of glass sequence.
The increase of pressure on my sphincter definitely went up during that whole sequence.
Yes.
Because whatever you think of the first part of the movie,
Yeah.
with like Coolio's antics and like the ugly cars and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
when you get to the plate of glass, it's a very serious and like very intense like action moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't even care about anything else leading up to this sequence. It's like the helicopter carrying the car gets stuck against the top of this building where there's this scaffolding, and outside of the scaffolding is a large plate of glass, and 3 of them fall onto this platformish plate of glass thing, and as one end raises up, the other person slides off, almost off the edge of the glass. So they have to keep fighting and then balancing this plate of glass that's going back and forth. It was really shot on the side of a building, like 200 floors up or whatever. You can see making of stuff where they're wearing harnesses and getting on there and stuff. And I don't know how they took them off or how they did the rest of this. I don't know the tricks, but it's just a staggering set piece. It's such a cool, creative way to have the sequence play out. And also the world's ugliest car is going to slowly descend towards them and ultimately break up their fight sequence in what I think is like a super long drop of Coolio. Like, I think they were trying to outdo Die Hard in like longest drop or something. I mean, he had to have just been wearing a diaper, because I don't know how you wouldn't just soil yourself in. I mean, it's a great sequence. I don't know.
You know, I did not watch the making of prior to watching the movie. So when I watched that, I noticed like the framing, like the composition of the shots. It seemed like there was maybe something underneath, or like maybe like this...
yeah, there is something below. Yeah.
Okay, so there's like a platform, like 20 feet down or something, so that even if they fall, they can't really fall. And but that whole scene is like it's very tense. It's very interesting. The fight choreography is great. Coolio as the main villain making it to the end was not what I expected.
Yeah.
Like when you got a guy like Mark Dacascos, who's like an incredible martial artist and known for being a guy who's capable of doing all kinds of crazy stunts and crazy like wire work and just operating with precision. And he's so fit and he's so intense that I was thinking, right, he's going to be the big bad guy. Coolio is going to have some role in things, but it's going to be his to finish. But then if you get the 2 cops are fighting Coolio,
Yes,
it was very unexpected.
Yeah.
If not for the plate of glass, it would have been ridiculous. The plate of glass sequence keeps you very invested in the survival of these human beings. And earlier at the beginning of the episode, you mentioned sound design is like a key factor.
Yeah.
And I agree. Like sound design, particularly in that sequence, was just incredible.
Yeah, the sounds of their like wet hands, like sweaty hands, like against the glass, like sliding. It's just like, ugh, no thanks. Like, I'm not a huge heights fan anyway, but yeah, every shot I was just like, I need to see like a net or something. I'm worried for these people. But then, the end happens. Coolio dies. That's the end of the film. Final thoughts for China Strike Force.
This is not Stanley Tong's best movie. It's also probably not the best example. It might be Coolio's best movie.
Without a doubt.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that this movie is a lot of fun. It's not the best thing I've seen. Having said that, as you can tell from our conversation, that plate of glass fight sequence is really incredible and is almost worth the entire lead up just to get to that point.
I agree.
So yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. I would recommend it to Coolio completionists.
Yes. Yeah, if you like that song, I Like Girls, you're going to enjoy China Strike Force. Yeah, I don't regret owning it. I think Mark is great in it. He's got the weirdest haircut where they just shaved his head like an inch above his ears, but regular haircut other than that. It's creative. Coolio, I'm guessing Coolio to the max. The fact that he's still called Coolio. There's a line in it.
What did he do to you?
Not me. My partner. Coolio killed him 2 years ago.
That's comedy gold, ladies and gentlemen. That's worth the price of admission right there. I hope this gets like a Blu-ray release or something, because it's I think people would really enjoy it. And the plate of glass sequence, that should be in like special effects reels and stuff, or fight sequence reels, whatever reels people put together, because I've never seen anything like it. And I think it's really cool. All right, well, I hope this wasn't the worst thing you saw during this week of things that you didn't like.
Oh man. No, I think 1990 Bronx Warriors was probably the worst thing I saw this week. Yeah.
There's an entirely different podcast. Here's the worst thing I saw this week.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Josh, it's always a pleasure. One more time, people can find you at solid6.net. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And
we'll be dropping Winter Kills Pretty soon we have 118 episodes at this point. So there's something in there that is for everyone.
Oh, yes. And I wanted to mention this up top, and in true to form, I'll mention it at the end. So your podcast, you rotate through the hosts, each picking 2 films. Is that correct?
That is correct. Each host picks a double feature, typically around a theme. Themes are kind of loose, but really we're pointing the choices at whatever's going to spark a fun conversation.
Yeah, and that's true. And they're really varied. The films are super varied. I think if you look at a lot of the stuff that I choose to talk about on my podcast, there's a pretty clear through line, I think, through most of my interests. But on Solid Six, I'm constantly surprised. I'll just be like, oh, it's like a Paul Newman movie, or like it's, you know, then it'll be like a weird spaghetti western or something. And it's a real treat to sometimes put on Solid Six and be like, I think I'm going to watch this for sure. And then sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to watch this.
Definitely not watching that.
But I don't need to, because there's
thank
a
you.
thorough conversation. You know, it's always a good time. So yes, listen to Solid Six Podcast. As always, I'm Dirk Marshall, and this has been VHS Presents New Releases and Late Returns.